I think who gets here is somebody who really, as you said correctly, it is not an easy, still not an easy place to get to. And I've been here teaching here now for 15 years. Is this okay, the sound for you? For 15 years. So you can imagine the condition of the roads now, how they, this is the improvement, this is the best we have had. So when we first came here, there was hardly any road. There was nothing. Now there is places being built, just even across. There was nothing at that time. And you know, whoever comes here is meant to come here. That's how I see it. And what draws them here is this deep, genuine interest in evolution, and an approach which is deeply rooted in authentic tradition, but without the dogma part of it. So deep without dilution, integrated approach, but without also any dogmatic part. And so we have, you know, as you said, there are people from all over. Right now, in this training, we have people from 19 or 20 countries, right? From Middle East to, of course, North America, Australia, all over, Europe, India. And the beauty of it is, like, the people, how I see it is, we get to be blessed by all the souls who get here, right? And so I feel we are, you know, the teachings only grow when shared. And my intention was always, the way I saw it, my teachings, my role is not a teacher for the masses. That's not my role. There are amazing, amazing, brilliant masters of our tradition. That's the role they are playing, right? Where they are impacting millions. That is not the way Divine Mother wants me to. So moving here, I'm from the Himalayas. I was a very deeply, I had this fantasy that I often spoke to Maharaji about, that once he dropped his body, I would go up in the mountains and live there and never come back. So he always laughed and he said, well, you try and let me know how it works out. So this is part of my Dharma, part of my destiny. But I felt that it was an intentional choice to be far away even from Rishikesh. I taught first in Rishikesh, in Lakshman Jhula. But as it, you know, I was being born there, I saw it change. You know, it is very different than what it used to be when I was born and grew up there. And that was a very idyllic place. You know, if you see pictures of it, it's really like out of a storybook. It changed drastically. And so it was an intentional shift to go far, but not too far, where you cannot fulfill the Dharma. And so that anybody who comes here, it's not like they just stumble upon it, right? So they have to really want to come. So you can truly honor worthy inquiry, you know, not just somebody stumbling. So the people who get here are really people who are deeply sincere, very mature, and we are blessed by this land, this space that we get to be in, and all the community that it draws to itself. But one of the common things that there's underlying intention is this deep longing for deeper growth, right? So these are people who are not coming because of suffering. It's not the suffering that is informing their spiritual pursuit, but rather this inner longing to live from a deeper place.
How important is sadhana?
Sadhana, without sadhana, there is nothing. Sadhana is the key, foundation. The word sadhana means tuning. And in this relative field of reality, we are living in time, and in time, entropy takes over. We move from a state of higher organization to lesser organization. No matter who we are, it's bound to happen. No matter how good your guitar is, if someone is going to play it, or even if it is not being played, it will get out of tune. So you have to constantly tune it. The act of tuning is what's called sadhana, literally. Sadhana means tuning, the instrument. If we go out of tune, then we just become very noisy, right? And that's the one of the issues with our world, is there is a lot of out of tune beings making a lot of noise. So sadhana is the act of tuning, because we have to realize we are living in the relative field of time. Time is change. If we do not change progressively, we will change regressively. And sadhana is a way to make sure that in time we are changing progressively. We keep growing. So time becomes our ally instead of becoming our enemy. That in time things get worse and chaos takes over. So sadhana is a non-negotiable on the spiritual path. It's your spiritual practice. And practice sadhana is ultimately what you do when no one is watching. It's not something you can put on social media. It's not something that you can click a picture of. It's not about who's sponsoring your yoga pants or your yoga mat. It is that deepest who you are, what is your practice, which cannot be just put on the media, right? It is the deepest part of you and what you do. And it is ultimately, sadhana is the greatest act of self-love. When you have deep self-love, you realize that you deserve to live your best life. And everybody around you deserves the best version of you. And sadhana is that. It's the action you take to give yourself the best life and give others who are around you your best version. So without sadhana, there is no spirituality. No practice, no experience.
And what is sadhana?
Sadhana is the spiritual practice, right? As a
specific one, or?
No, again, depends on which tradition you are coming from, which school you are learning. As I said, the beauty of India, why India is still relevant, why yogic teachings are still relevant, is because it's so vast, right? It is not a singular teaching. It is not a prophet. There is no prophet. There is no single book. There is no single method, right? So it is so vast that it can speak, different teachers, different teachings, different techniques can speak to different people at different stages of evolution. As I said, there will be teachers who speak to the masses, who will address masses at a certain level. There will be teachers who might speak to smaller groups, right? They will speak to a different, like Paramahansa Yogananda, coming from the Kriya lineage. He went to America. And he innovated and designed the teachings in a specific manner which was suitable for the people in America, which was a predominantly Christian country at that time, very different than what it is now. And so he designed the techniques and practice to address the people, to help them, make them better from where they were. So sadhana is not just one singular teaching. We have integrated approach. So we have a whole library of practices. There is a base practice, which is the meditation is the foundational practice, which is a kriya and mantra based practice. And then we have breath, distinct kriya sets, which are on top of that, right? So which keep changing depending on where you are at in life. So you do a sadhana for, let's say, 40 days. Then depending on where you are at, what's the need of the hour, you shift. We use mantras, japa practices, then you have advanced sadhanas, advanced practices, like the one that we are doing now. So it's the beauty of these practices is they meet you exactly where you are at, right? So, and also honoring whichever tradition you are coming from, whichever belief system you are coming from. So for example, someone might be coming from very Christian or very Islamic background and fresh, but they are interested. And they still might be hesitant in using mantras, using sound. So you have to give them practices, and if you only give practices which are mantra based, then you cannot include them. So thankfully we have practices which do not, if you don't still have some resistance around mantra, you can have a sadhana designed for you which does not use mantra, right? And then you might develop where your resistance drops and you understand that, okay, what mantra means, and it's not just a prayer, you're not invoking some entity. And then you might start using that, right? If you're, on the other hand, let's say somebody has physical limitation. Physically, they are challenged in a certain way. And your sadhana only includes doing asanas, rounds and rounds of complex asanas like Ashtanga primary series, which is wonderful for a certain body type. But for another person, it's just not accessible. Somebody who's in 70-year-old and they are interested in yoga, how they cannot do that? It's not possible. So their sadhana would be very different, right? So that is our approach. My approach is, if anybody comes to yoga, we should have that yoga capacity to make yoga accessible to them, that it can meet them exactly where they are at and elevate their state, right? So our sadhanas are not just one size fits all. It is a vast teaching. We have, again, one of the intention, as you said, is one of the benefits of living here and being here in the interiors of the Himalayas, at the birthplace of yoga, is that people come here. So we are not going out. I do travel, but this is where the core of our teachings happen. So because people come here, we can stay true and take them deep and stay open, but we don't have to limit the teachings, right, to fit a certain environment that we find ourselves in, that because the environment might reject certain aspects of the teaching, right? It might not fit into their culture, and that's okay. So when we train teachers here and they go out, let's say they teach in America or they teach in Middle East, or they have the gift of modifying the teachings, keeping some parts out because the culture might reject it in the beginning, right? But we as a source school don't have to do that because we are here. So that is the intention also, to not leave and make the main mothership center elsewhere, is to keep it here so that we don't have to leave the whole, just because now we find ourselves, let's say, living in America or living in Europe somewhere, and in order to make sure that it fits within the cultural context of that country, we have to leave certain elements out. We don't have to do that. Our teachers, as they go in different places, they do it. But we can stay true. That is the intention.